Hey everybody, it's Lace, your favorite charlatan cult leader. I have not done a video since all of this Mishigas started 3 weeks ago, and I think it's time to do it, period. I'm used to doing voice to text, so now you heard me say period. Take a drink. I'm not going to speak too much on the particulars of everything that went down. Frankly, I'm constrained, and rightly so. The ethos of Lace on Race, which apparently a lot of you don't feel I hold to, or don't think that I am authentic about, that same ethos that you all might think are disingenuous is something that I hold myself to. That means I cannot use the same strategies and tactics that my ex-employee intern did. That makes things a little bit harder for me. I have been incredibly circumspect, and I will continue to do so because I believe that friendship and love are unilateral. Even when someone decides that they want to be out of friendship or connection or ethos with me, that does not give me permission to void my commitment to them. You guys need to really hear that. That means that there are some things that Holly can absolutely do that I cannot and will not. That includes private conversations. That includes things that I know that she told me and staff in confidentiality. That ties my hands a lot. It means that in a real sense, I can't defend myself. And I'm not going to try. If you are inclined to swallow my ex-employee's fish whole, so be it. I can't stop you. But I do ask you perhaps to ask yourself why it was so easy to do that. Why it was so easy to take the word of a person who has been functionally MIA since October over someone who has walked with you regularly. Why it was so easy for you to think the best of that person and to absolutely think the worst of me. Oh man, I feel it. I feel it hard. But that's not why we're here. I'm here to talk about love. I'm here to talk about Hesed. I'm here to talk about the way that we do things here. And I'm going to write more about it. But I feel that I need to get this sort of off of my chest before I can do writing, because writing has not come easily to me in these past days and weeks, partially because of my self-imposed constraints, and also because I knew that anything I say can be and will be misconstrued. That is a very inhibiting factor that I have to work with and work around. But it's still necessary to talk about it. And we will. But first, let's talk about love. Let's talk about the unilateralism of love. And let's talk about Hesed. First, the unilateralism of love, because I think that needs to be talked about. I still love Holly. And people will think that that is manipulative and disingenuous and all the rest. And I kind of don't care about what people say about my own motivations and my interior life. I know what's in my interior life. I still love Holly. This time, I'm going to look at this time exactly 4 weeks ago, maybe even 3 weeks ago, before all the Mishigas started, I loved Holly. I had faith in her potential, which is why she stayed with me even through some lumpy crossings. I loved her enough to encourage her to sit for her CPA and offered to pay for it and the CPA exam test prep itself. I loved her enough to offer to reduce my own salary so that I could afford a part-time assistant, which would have been Holly. Potential is a double-edged sword. Everyone thinks that when we talk about potential, it is almost by definition a good thing. And for the most part, it is, right? I see your potential. I see what you're capable of, and I want to be a part of it. And I want to help you get to where you say you want to go. That is the entire premise of how I relate to all of you in Lace on Race. I see your potential. I have that fictive imagination that I talked about at the beginning of the Hope series when I close my eyes and I see you 5 weeks, 5 years from now. I had that with her. But potential is a double-edged sword. One can talk about potential. Thanks, Leonie. One can talk about potential, but it can cut both ways. As someone who has talked a lot about how my life could have gone given some of the challenges that I have, I know the double-edged sword of potential. I know that it has been sometimes daily, weekly, hourly, minute by minute choice to live up to the potential that people have invested within me, that I know that the universe, another way of saying God, has invested in me, and the potential that I see in myself. And I am aware that every single day there are 2 roads that I can choose. As someone who has a trauma history, I have to be very, very careful because trauma survivors go one of 2 ways. They either completely identify with the oppressed and they say to themselves, no one will ever have to experience what I've experienced. And then that becomes their guiding star and everything is hung onto that. And I hope I'm that woman. Then there are people that identify with the oppressor, one way or the other, and they decide that they are going to do to others, consciously or unconsciously, overtly or covertly, what the world has done to them. The problem with it, as Peter Kramer talks about with Ivan Naj, talking about merited entitlement and debits and credits, is that you got to keep your accounts clean. You got to make sure, especially if you're on this side, that I am going to exact revenge or retaliation. You got to make sure that the person that you're exacting revenge and retaliation upon is indeed the right person. Over here, you don't have to worry about it since you've decided you're not going to go that way. Basically, you can give your all to absolutely everyone, regardless of whether or not you feel that they may have either benevolent or malevolent intent, and the truth is usually somewhere in the middle. So when I chose Holly 6 months or so ago, I saw potential. I hoped that she would walk with me. She didn't, but I kept holding on to that potential. Perhaps that was a mistake on my part. I'll own it, but I will never be sorry for giving myself and pouring myself into another person, whether or not that is ultimately accepted or rejected. I do not regret a moment of what I have done with and on behalf of Holly. Even now, I am saddened that she didn't pick up what I was putting down. I am sorry that she wasn't buying what I was selling. I am sorry that I failed to give her a compelling reason to walk with me in a durable way. I kept trying. It didn't work. And all of us needs to know that it's not always going to work. Potential cuts both ways. Part of that, seeing her potential, was indeed telling her things about myself, telling her things about my method and ethos and what I had seen previously in the 3 years before Lace on Race and what I decided to make changes in order to live out the premise and the thesis that I have in my head, and that is, in the beloved community, everyone can talk to everyone. Nobody is exempt from course correction by anyone, so long as it is done with Hesed. There's no carve-outs. And when she agreed to work with me, she agreed to that premise and that thesis. She agreed to the guidelines. She agreed to the pin post. She agreed to the Lace on Race vision that we laid out about this time a year ago. That didn't take I am deeply saddened by that. But that doesn't mean I would change a single thing. I suppose also one of the things that I have felt deeply is that this particular intern was the first person that I chose. For the rest of my staff and leadership team, they chose me, which, yay, and I got lucky. I got lucky because a lot of times when people kind of choose you and say, what can I do? What can I do? And you tell them and then they go, it's too much, or I'm not sure. I have gotten so much more than I ever could have dreamed or hoped from my leadership team and my staff. There would be no Lace on Race, Center for Racial Equity, absent that. There have been a couple of mistakes in the last 3 years. One was with a dominant culture person. The other one was with a person of color. Can't get it right all the time, but if you count all of that, 21 people, I got it wrong. If you count the 2 board members that ultimately left last week, a week after we signed documents, that's 5 out of 20. That's actually not a bad retention rate. I'm okay with that. I'll stand by that. And I'm not sorry that I chose them either, or that they at least ostensibly chose me. Let's talk about Hesed, and let's talk about unilateralism. Unilateralism first, because I think it's really important. Because a lot of people think, for better or for worse, let me pick up something easy over here that we can use. Let's look at Trader Joe's ground nutmeg. We're in the kitchen. Let's say that Trader Joe's ground nutmeg is filled with my ethos, with my convictions, with who I say I am, who I want to be. And it's all fine as long as everything is okay. But the minute there is a problem, for the minute there is a pain point or a choice point, I can get rid of the ingredient of nutmeg. They were unkind to me. They did things I didn't like, which gives me full-on permission to respond in kind. No, it doesn't. Hear that again. Just because someone is awful to you does not give you permission to be awful back. We talked a little bit in the Lace on Race Cafe and also on the page about justification and proportionality. If you believe that your praxis is unilateral, that is to say, that it is not dependent upon what someone does to you, that makes your path incredibly clear. If you are understanding about proportionality, even if you decide to take action, it has to be proportional. It has to be proportional to the harm you felt was endured. So, as I have said in print, and as I am saying now, let's make a stipulation that, for the purpose of this thought experiment, we're going to go with. I'm going to say it right now. I don't agree with it, but let's just go with it for a minute, okay? Let's say that I was absolutely the worst boss ever. Let's say that I absolutely manipulated and was dreadful to Holly all up until that staff meeting on the 24th that she decided to leave and never return to. Let's say that I was absolutely the personality disordered, manipulative, awful person that she has described. Let's say all of that. Let's say that she was afraid of me, that she thought I was fragile, all of that. Let's just think the absolute worst of me possible. Let's take what Holly asserted and let's swallow it whole and let's assume that she is 100% right and I am 100% wrong. Now we talk about proportionality. And you guys will make your own discernment about that. But I'm going to flip it really fast. And now that the offensive has been unleashed, as of last Friday, when Holly made her opening statement, and throughout this last week, when I have not seen 99% of what she wrote, And what her friends wrote, let's talk about my responsibility. My responsibility. Forget Holly for a while. She's made her choices. Now the ball is in my court. Now the ball is in my court when I think about justification and proportionality. And for me, there's no question. I am not justified in treating Holly the way Holly treated me, because it was pretty awful. I have cried every night. But I am still not justified in treating Holly with the same Molotov cocktails and nuclear bombs that she did. That is not justified. Her walking away from a job does not justify me. Even all of the things she did last week does not justify my action. So I will not take action. And now, thought experiment number 2. Let's assume that, yes, I did think that it was worth taking definitive action that would negatively affect Holly. Let's look at proportionality. Let's look at the fact that this time 4 weeks ago, we were in relationship together, what I thought was a fairly durable and healthy one. Not so much, apparently. I did get to read a few of what she said. And as recently as, gotta look at the calendar again. Here it is. That as recently as 2 weeks ago, she expected to sit on the board of an organization that she now decries under the leadership and headship of a woman she says is personality disordered. Even so, my response is unilateral. I loved her 3 weeks ago. I loved her 4 weeks ago. I loved her 2 weeks ago, even when we were having a really difficult conversation where I was praying that she would course correct, and she didn't, even after the board meeting, when I still had a conversation with her. And even on Friday when she did her opening salvo and every single subsequent action, I saw one of the posts where it has to be the most unflattering picture of me ever. Boobs ablazing up in Northern California when I went with her. Still loved her. Love her still. That's unilateralism. If she called me at 3 a.m. tonight saying that she busted a tire, I would be there. I may not talk to her. I may hold her at arm's length, but I said that I was going to be her 3 a.m. friend, and that is not voided. That's unilateralism. Whether or not she considers herself to be my friend, and all the evidence points to the fact that she doesn't, that does not absolve me of my commitment to her. Hear that again. Hear that again. Even though she has abdicated her role and her commitment to me as a friend and employee, that does not absolve me of my responsibilities to her. And it won't. That does mean some things have to be rejiggered. That means the odds are probably low that she's ever going to work on staff. She divulged confidential information. That's a big deal. She actively tried to sabotage a brand new organization where the ink isn't even dry on the signatories, metaphorically speaking. But the door to relational repair is still open. As I said in something that I wrote, the relationship is dead. Long live the relationship. So we start from zero. She now knows a little bit more about me and how I roll. And y'all should know too. And I know a little bit about her and how she's chosen to roll. I cannot not know that. But that does not mean that the door is slammed shut with 18 bolts. It means that we come to each other cautiously with a fuller knowledge of the other. But that does not mean that relationship is completely elided. That is not how I roll. Do I think she's ever going to take me up on it? Nope. Does that mean that I am still obligated to my own ethos regarding her? Absolutely. Now let's talk a little bit about Hesed. We haven't had the conversation that we need to have about this concept that I love so very much. Unilateral, enduring, straight talk, courageous, eye to eye love. I'm still bound by it in regards to Holly and in regards to all of you. The lurkers, the looky-loos, the bystanders, the rubberneckers, even those who have shown themselves to be perhaps less than kind to me in these past 3 weeks. My responsibility and my obligation still stands. Hesed, North Star, regardless. I realize that puts me at a distinct disadvantage. It's kind of like Batman and the Joker. Batman is constrained by his own self-imposed code. The Joker can go all over the place. Makes it harder. We've talked about this. We talked about that with Jim and Kate. We talked about that with the Christian left, that there are some places that I cannot and will not go. And that hurts me a lot. And I'm still going to do it. Because I have to. Because I have to look at myself at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day and ask how close I was to the woman I say I want to be. And I cannot allow anything to subvert or to void that. Otherwise, Holly and company absolutely won. And I know that there are people who are hoping that I make a misstep. All the looky-loos and the rubberneckers are waiting to see just how marrow deep the woman I say I am and this woman I say I want to be actually is. And there are some people who are kind of hoping I get it right. And thank you. There are some people who trust that I get it right. Doubly thank you. There are people who can go either way. Then there are people who think that I'm going to mess up. And then that will call into question their entire time with me. And then there are people who hope I stumble. I can't imagine thinking that way. But there are some who do. Oh, and that hurts me. Oh my God, I feel it so hard. The people that have chosen to think the worst of me, those are the ones that keep me up at night. Those are the ones that make me really think hard about the praxis and the durability of what I have been hoping that I model and that I teach for the last 3 years. That so many of you were able to believe the worst of me hits hard. And it means that I have to look at everything. Everything. I mean, you guys can't see the rest of my kitchen table. There's a lot of crap on it. It's been a tough 3 weeks in the space of a tough 3 months with my mother almost being, well, dying any minute now. Let's just call it what it is. Plus the formation of Les Sunrays, plus my retirement. There's been a lot, and my kitchen has seen the brunt of it. I'm not going to show you, but let's just stipulate that there's a lot of crap on my kitchen table. It doesn't matter. Who you are in choice points and pain points is who you are. I'm going to keep being who I'm being. It's all I know how to be. This chubby lady from North Encanto who keeps a really messy house and an even worse Santa Fe. Wow, it's bad right now. I don't think that it's by accident, by the way. I'm saying it parenthetically, but I'll make the covert overt. I don't think that it's by accident that Holly knows what I'm dealing with my mother and chose to exploit that. And wow, I feel it. And all of you who know what the last 3 months and 6 months have been like. and have chosen to think the worst of me anyway. And that has to be okay. We are reconfiguring what the takeout window will look like, because honestly, it's not a safe place for me right now. So for now, at least, most of the work that I do will be indeed on the website and in the Liaison Race Cafe, what we call groups. Oh, Hesed, I forgot to talk about Hesed because I have to talk about my sister when I talk about Hesed. And I also have to talk about motivation and what tough love actually should look like. Holly says that she's saying all these things out of love of Black people, love of people of color, and even love for me. And maybe that's true, but let's talk about that for a moment. I have a sister, my oldest one, Elena. It really depends on what mood she's in. When she's code switching, she's Alana. When she's having coffee with you, she's Elena. And when she's activated, she's Lana. And you gotta be careful of that. I got a little bit of Lena over these last 2 weeks, and she has given me food for the journey. And one of the things that she has done is that she has said some really tough things over coffee, over brunch, on the phone, in text. She has been unsparing, and I have taken every word of it. You know why? Because all of it was said with Hesed love, uncompromising, no nonsense, love at the core. I could see her eyes, and it's just kind of, even though she's saying some really tough things, I believe her. That hasn't always been true. Sometimes in our earlier years, Elena would go for the jugular, and I could see her eyes narrow, and she was going in for the kill. She doesn't do that anymore. But one of the things that did do is it made me very aware of what it looks like when someone is serving me tough things that are hard to hear. But they're doing it from a place of Hesed, and people who are basically weaponizing what they call, I'm just being a truth teller. I've said this for years. You can say anything you want, you just can't say it any old way. Elena, today at brunch, if you were a bystander or sitting at a table across from us and she's shaking her fork at me, you might think that she was really giving me the business. And she was, but it was from a place of love. I can take it. I can inculcate it. I can internalize it. I can look at the woman across from me and go, this is all for my best benefit. She's not weaponizing. She would bring things up from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, not to weaponize, but to make an example and an illustration. That is definitely different than what happened in that staff meeting. But again, no one's asked me about what happened in the staff meeting. So I'm going to wrap this up because we're going to talk about more of this later. We're going to talk about proportionality. We're going to talk about justification. We're going to talk about Hesed. We're going to talk about motivation. And most importantly, we're going to talk about unilateralism. What we owe to each other, which is the basis of contractual ethics. Whether or not you think that I'm a big old honkin' charlatan fraud, or you're hoping I am, because see, if I am a big old honkin' charlatan fraud, if I am that, then that gives you reason to not only disregard what I've been saying and disregard me, but it also gives you a reason to walk away from the work, from the internal work that we, in terms of relational ethics, push and insist upon. And that is one of the things we're going to talk about when I do my essay, Lines, Lanes, and the Relational. What we have the right to expect of each other, what we have the right when it comes to holding each other well, being called in and doing the calling in. There is not unanimity of opinion about who gets to say what to whom. I absolutely agree that it needs to be done well, that it needs to be done in the spirit of Hesed, that it needs to be done in right motivation. But to basically say that no one can speak to me as a Black woman is basically giving me a lot of wiggle room to act incredibly badly. I do not want that. In my 57 years on this planet, I have had a plethora of coaches and mentors and professors and leaders and spiritual directors of all ethnicities, and all of them poured into me, and not all of it was pleasant. Most of it wasn't. Thank you. Thank you. To say that a certain cohort of people cannot speak into someone's life, I will never agree with, and particularly when it comes to the relational, which is what we talk about at Lace on Race. And one of the things that Holly conveniently forgot, because she never read the guidelines and she never read the thin post. In fact, in short, she never inculcated our ethos at all, which is always funny when people who never inculcated or internalized either my premise or my method talk to me about whether or not I'm in violation of it. But at least on paper, when she became a staff member and an intern, even if we agree that what is considered to be conventional wisdom is true, don't agree with it, but let's for a moment assume that it's true, she waived that. The minute she stepped into community at Lace on Race, she waived that. Yes, anyone can speak to her as long as it's with Hesed and with truth, and with love at the core, and with right motivation. And she could speak to anyone as long as it was with Hesed and truth and right motivation and love at the core. There was a cohort of women who lived out option one. Holly never did. And when she spoke to me, both in that staff meeting and in this intervening week, there hasn't been Hesed. There hasn't been love at the core. There hasn't been right motivation. That needs to be said out loud and plainly. So, if you think I'm a dangerous Black woman who is harming a bunch of white women and hurting them and being a charlatan and shaking them down for money, which I'm going to do this weekend because we need to do the ask. I've already missed 2 weeks. And yes, I'm going to do it. Tone deaf as it might seem, because I love this organization and I love its Western Star. Even if you think all that of me, well, test me out. For those of you who aren't sure, remember. And for those of you who have walked with me consistently and faithfully, even through these lumpy crossings, I thank you. We'll talk more, but I'm glad that we did this now. I wake up every day with my North Star firmly in mind, and nobody will never make me waver from that. I hope you see in these eyes the same determination that Elena gave to me at brunch today, where she basically said that if I gave up and if I rolled over and if I cowered in a corner, she would come and beat my butt. And even though she's older than me, I believe her. So I can't do that. I can keep walking unwaveringly. And if you choose to walk with me, that's great. That's great. If you choose not to, yes, I'm saddened. But like I've said for years now, I am not everybody's cup of kombucha. There are literally thousands of pages and websites and blogs and videos of people who do things differently than I do, and you're quietly welcomed to follow them. But I'm not going to change something that has been fomenting in my head for 35 years and has been made flesh in Lace on Race for the last 3. I will keep walking, whether or not I walk alone, but I know I don't. That makes all the difference. Talk to you later.